Welcome to our review of BCOM Chapter 11 titled Designing and Delivering Business Presentations. We want to start off by talking about how to plan an effective business presentation. It begins first of all by knowing your purpose. Why are you there? What is your intention? What is the intention of the person who has invited you to come and speak? Understand your purpose and understand the content of the information you're going to share. Secondly, it's important to know your audience. There are a couple of questions to ask. First of all, who is my audience? At this point, we can look at a lot of different demographics to understand the audience, the age, the gender, the background, socioeconomic background, the education level. We have to really understand who our audience is all about, and we have to understand why we are there in the first place to share with them. Do we have a particular objective? Is there a particular request that we're trying to fulfill for this particular organization that we're sharing with? And then we have to ask ourselves, what environmental factors do we have? The way the people are being seated. Will there be some outside distractions? Have they just had lunch? Will they get hungry after a short time? And we have to really work hard to keep them wide awake in the process. All of these things go into knowing about our audience before we step into the room and even begin to present. Then we want to talk about organizing the content. As we've always talked about in our class, when we organize content, there are three different parts: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. These are so important. When we organize our presentation, we do the same thing. We start with an introduction, which basically captures the attention of the audience and previews for them what we're going to talk about. Then we move into the body of the presentation, in which we present the facts and the details and the quotes and any statistics, basically the bulk of the content or the information that we are intending to share with them. And then finally we end with the conclusion, which summarizes and closes our presentation. All of these things fit together to help people understand what we're saying to them and what message we're trying to get across to them. Obviously, we will use visuals in most of the presentations that we make. And on pages 200 to 203, you can read the specifics and the details about the kinds of visuals that we will present. There are two things, though, that I want to suggest to you that are not really in the textbook. First of all, it's very important for you to practice. Practice, practice, practice with your visual aid so that you know very well how to use that. I see so many times when students are coming up to present and they stand before a smart board and they don't know how to advance the slide to the next one. If they would just practice with it, they would know some of the intricacies, some of the details about how to use their equipment. I've seen others using older equipment like a 35mm slide projector and not really understand how to use it. Always be prepared for the eventuality that your visual aid is not going to be used. It could come with a burned out bulb. It could come with a lost flip chart. It could come with any kind of emergency that comes up and you're not able to use your visual aid as you intended. Remember this at all times. You are your best visual aid. You can lose everything you have in your presentation to help you visually. You're not lost because you are your best visual aid. You can stand in front of an audience and with your facial expression, with your gestures, with your voice, you are able to communicate so much. Never lean upon visual aids for strength in your presentation. It must come from you and the content that you have. Now we want to talk about refining your delivery, and there are a number of issues that we want to take a look at. First of all, we want to talk about the delivery method itself. You may or may not have some choice about how you deliver, but there are several different delivery methods you need to be aware of. The first and perhaps the most difficult is to memorize your speech. And if you have a great memory, and few people do, that's a great way for you to deliver your speech. I don't have a great memory. I have to use notes all the time. In fact, truth be known, let me turn this around and you'll be able to see the notes that I'm using as I'm preparing for you right here. Can you see I've been using the smart board with notes? That's all right. Anything you can do to help you in your presentation will help the audience as you deliver. Now let me see if I can get this lined up right and correctly once again here. I had it all set so nicely. I don't know, I may edit this part out. Well, that's good enough. You can still see me, can't you? Okay. Some people can memorize their speeches, and that's great if they can do that. Other people need a manuscript, and they have things written out, and they actually end up reading, for the most part, their presentation and what they're going to do. Another way to present, and probably used most often, in fact I'm using it right now, is the extemporaneous, where I have prepared and actually created notes for myself. You just saw them on the screen a moment ago, and I am delivering based upon those notes. I'm not reading to you. In fact, if you took a good look at the screen at that time, you saw that I only have just a few words. And out of those few words, I take the content of the ideas that I want to express to you, and I talk to you just in a natural way as though we were standing together. I operate this way as an extemporaneous speaker, rather than having full notes and just taking a few detailed phrases that will remind me of what I want to say. Now, the fourth kind of delivery style is the impromptu, and that's where you are asked to give a speech just on the spur of the moment, and you have to get up and immediately think of something. That's perhaps the most challenging. But of these four, you will find a method that is best for you: the memorization, the manuscript, the extemporaneous, or the impromptu. We also want to talk about vocal qualities. There are three vocal qualities that you as the speaker can use like an artist uses paint. These three are rate, pitch, and volume. So if I talk about each of these individually, you will understand them. The rate has to do with how fast we speak or how slow we speak. The pitch has to do with whether we raise our pitch or whether we lower our pitch. And then the volume, speaking up or speaking more softly. I want to be heard here on this, so I'll speak up a little bit. But by using these three different vocal qualities, we are able to create visual pictures in sound that communicate something. For example, if I talk to you about fire, you understand what I'm talking about, a flame someplace. But if I change the rate, if I change the pitch, and if I change the volume, and be careful now when I do this, and do something like this, fire, fire! All of a sudden, you recognize that simply by changing my pitch and my volume, I've changed the essence of my message. No longer am I talking about a fire that could be on a candle or a campfire. I'm calling out an emergency. And I do that simply by changing the rate, the pitch, and the volume. The more you can perfect these three vocal qualities, the more effective you will be in your presentations. Now let's talk a little bit about delivery. I suggest that you practice and practice and practice in front of a mirror, in front of a video camera, using your visual aids so that you become very familiar with what you're going to say and with what you're going to do. I further suggest that you memorize both your introduction statements and your concluding statements. It seems like when people get fearful of presenting, the one thing that helps them the most is to be able to get in front of a crowd and to be able to deliver very strongly the first portion of their message. If they would simply memorize the introduction, people are able to get up and start out strong, and usually that keeps them going strong. It will also garner the attention of the audience and get you going in a speech in a very strong way. Then memorize your conclusion, because many times it's the conclusion that people remember the best. So deliver your conclusion with strength, with certainty, and with persuasiveness. A third thing to do is to seek feedback from others. Let others watch your video, let others watch you while you present, and listen to them as they suggest to you how to improve your presentation. As you're presenting, present with confidence. And you show confidence just by projecting your voice, by looking at your audience, by being very natural before them. Yes, there's fear, yes, there's concern, but play the role of an actor. Overcome that fear. Show confidence that you may not have deep inside, but you can show it physically, and your speech will come across much more strongly. Finally, study your audience for feedback. Look for people that are about to fall asleep. That's when you need to interject something that will awaken them. clap your hands, make a noise, call for their attention, whatever it takes to keep them going. And as long as you can keep people interested and listening to you, you'll be able to see that, and you will have captured them and in the presentation of your message. More and more as our globe shrinks, you're going to find yourself in situations where you are addressing a culturally diverse audience. At such a time as that, the tips that you will find on pages 210 to 212 can be very important. Those 2 pages will contain a wealth of material on how to deal in those kinds of situations. I'm sorry I don't have time to discuss it in this video. I must move on to team presentations, because when it comes to team presentations, we're talking about something that will affect you. If not today or tomorrow, but certainly when you finish your program at NNU in your business degree, you're going to have to complete a requirement called senior seminar. And part of the senior seminar is to do a major project in a team and then make a team presentation of that project before faculty members in the department. Now, that can sound like a very daunting task, but let me suggest to you a few ways that you could prepare for that as a team and be ready to make a good, solid presentation. First of all and foremost is to practice. Secondly, what you need to do as a team is to practice. And thirdly, did I say it before? You must practice. Am I making my point? You have to practice as a team. If you practice, it will show that you are well coordinated, that you know what's coming up next in the presentation, who is to speak next, and be able to move on with confidence and with certainty, and that's what the faculty is looking for. Secondly, make a transition between each speaker so that when one person finishes their presentation, they are able to look at the next speaker, introduce that speaker by name, and talk about a preview, just a summary of what that speaker is going to talk about. Those kinds of transitions strengthen the cohesiveness of your presentation, and you will need those in your presentation. Thirdly, make certain that everyone in the group participates, especially when it comes to question and answer time. Don't let anyone remain silent in your presentation. Everyone has to have a part. There are so many other things that we could talk about in terms of team presentations. You will find some of these things in your textbook, and certainly as you go along, watch teams as they present. Watch places where they fall down and how you might correct that when you do your own team presentation. Finally, as we come to the end of Chapter 11, we need to talk just a little bit about distance and video conferencing. More and more you will discover that in our world of technology, you will connect with people via video conferencing or video cam, as I am doing right now. You're going to have to practice doing that in front of a camera, and it will help you. I think that already I am becoming a better public speaker in front of a camera just by doing it over and over and over again. I told you at the very beginning of this class, as we were starting in Chapter 1, I don't really like doing these kinds of videos. I don't like standing in front of a camera. But I do it because many students come to me and say, this is very beneficial. And I also do it because I know the more I do it, the better I will become. Please read the end of Chapter 12 for an understanding of how to do video conferencing. You'll learn such things as look right into the camera instead of off to the side. You can tell right now that my eyes are to the side, that I'm not really looking at you. What you must do is look right into the camera as I am now. All of these things and more you'll find in Chapter 12. Take a good look at the chapter so you can do well in the exam, but particularly so that you can do your best when you're in business. God bless you. I'll see you in the next lecture.